Hi and welcome to this video. I haven't actually made a video in a really long time. I'm not sure how this one's going to go. If it goes well, I'm hoping to just maybe start putting out videos on a regular basis, or just like on a whole range of topics. We'll have to see. Also, I'm going to try and just record this all in one take because editing videos is just such a time-consuming drag. So if I lose my train of thought halfway, I'm just going to release this anyway. Anyway, the reason why I'm making this particular video is because a while ago my old network router, which I got through my internet provider, broke, and I had to obtain a new one. And if you've bought one of these like in the last 10 years or so, you've probably found it came with a little slip of paper like this inside. So this slip of paper that came inside the box, on top of it, it says GNU General Public License Notice. And what this is, it's basically a kind of declaration by the company that made my network router saying that the software that went into their device wasn't actually their software. They got to use and modify it for free under the condition that they agree to certain license agreements. And one thing that they agree to do is to release the source code to a user on request. So basically this little slip of paper is like an offer to provide access to some of the source code that's inside my new network router. I get the impression that they don't really want anyone to take them up on this offer. I mean, a slip of paper like this, I think what they're intending for people to do, if someone is a really good consumer, they're going to read the word license notice. Their eyes are going to glaze over. They might read the top line and they might get up to here and that'll be the end of their attention span. And if they're a really good consumer, they'll throw this into the recycling bin so that it can be recycled into new eco-friendly recycled paper products or egg cartons or something like that. But basically what they're offering to do, they say this product includes source code developed by third parties, including software code subject to the GNU General Public License, or GPL for short. So basically, how this thing came about was there was a dude called Richard Stallman, and I think I've spelled his name right. And he was working on an operating system which he called GNU. Richard Stallman is kind of like the undisputed champion of weird terms that he likes to coin that never catch on because people just can't pronounce them. But so his project was an operating system called GNU. Someone else was working on an operating system called Linux. And those two efforts kind of ended up getting merged together into something which was meant to be called GNU Linux, but nobody wanted to try saying this out loud, this acronym, because it's just such a weird, hard to say acronym. So everyone just calls it Linux now. So basically Linux is a piece of what Richard Stallman would call free software. He's also the master of ambiguous terminology. So what free software means is the software isn't necessarily free of charge, but it's software that you can modify freely and you can build new products out of that software under the condition that since you got the code for free, when you sell or distribute that code or that device to someone else, that person should have the right to have access to the code so they can continue the cycle, so they can continue to modify the code and tinker with it to their heart's content. It's a bit like having the right to repair your own car. In this case, it's just you should have the right to modify the code that goes into your device and get your device working the way you want it to. Doesn't apply to their own code that they put inside here, but does apply to the code that went into here, which they modified for their own purposes, or which they just used unmodified. So because they decided to use code like Linux, software like Linux inside their device, and because they ended up building a hardware empire out of building devices using code that they got for free, the condition that they agreed to, which is why this little slip of paper is inside the box, is that they agree to provide the user with a copy of this source code that's covered under this so-called GPL license agreement. So, like I said, I don't think they really want people to take them up on this offer. What they agree to do is to post to me on request a CD-ROM containing the code that they don't own the copyright to. You remember CD-ROMs? They're like the round shiny things from the 90s. So by post, for a nominal fee to cover shipping and media charges, and they say that I can request this by email or by traditional paper mail. I'm surprised they don't demand that I send them a fax to get this. So this isn't something that they necessarily want to provide, but they're obliged to provide it because that's part of the deal. That's how they manage to build their company around this kind of software. So I don't think any sane person would probably want to write to them and offer to pay them money to order a CD-ROM in the mail, especially since much of this software like Linux is available from other sources for free online. But I decided to put them to the test. So I decided to send them an email, and I was thinking of, maybe making a good impression, like what kind of salutation should I use? Should I say like dear, yeah, I couldn't think of a good one, so I just began the email with, hey, what's up? And I pretty much just put the question to them, because they are allowed to charge a fee under these terms to cover the cost of posting this CD-ROM in the mail. I was just wondering what the fees are to order a CD-ROM of a GPL source code for my router. I'm located in Australia. I thought that might affect the shipping charge because everything's more expensive if you live in Australia. And I decided to blank out the model name and the manufacturer's info for the purposes of this video, because I just felt like maybe in a video like this we want to discuss ideas rather than just turn it into a witch hunt targeting like one manufacturer. I think this kind of thing that I'm going to get to is kind of industry-wide rather than just one company doing the wrong thing. So a few days later, I mean, they weren't in any hurry to reply, but I guess they sort of have a legal obligation to reply eventually. I got a reply from them. So this reply came from over in their sort of mirror universe, and they wrote to me, "Dear customer, thank you for your email requesting information about our product. This router model that I've blanked out is designed and provided for service providers." So this is where I started to get the impression that maybe, even though on paper they seem willing to comply with their obligations, maybe in practice they might prefer to make this a bit more complicated for someone who actually wants to take them up on this kind of offer. So this router is designed and provided for service providers, so we will not provide the GPL code until it's required or approved by the providers. Can we confirm, where did you purchase it from? Does it provided by your ISP, or did you purchase it from the local market? If you got it from your ISP, please confirm if they can provide any open source code for it. So basically, I got my router through my internet provider because the way my internet provider works, I'm locked into using their hardware that they provide, which is locked down by them, otherwise my landline doesn't work. So yeah, I did get my router through my internet provider, but you wouldn't think that would change the fact that they built and sold a router using code that didn't belong to them under the condition that they get to share that code with the end user. So Yeah, I thought this was a bit of a cop-out. They're almost saying like, my internet provider wanted my router to be locked down, so therefore they're just not going to comply. It seems a bit weird. Sorry for the inconvenience and hope you could understand it. Well, I mean, I could understand it, I guess at least you tried. Best regards, and no name underneath it. So yeah, I got back to them and I said, yeah, it was provided by my internet provider. And inside the box was this slip of paper saying that you agree to provide the source code for at least 3 years. And it said to contact you using the email address I wrote to you with. So basically, what's your problem? And they got back to me saying, dear customer, thank you again for requesting. I'm really glad that they appreciate me requesting this. So if they like it so much, I could do it more often. As far as I know, there will be a GPL license card in the package for all their products. But there are cases that the specific model may not need to provide. Yeah, so at this point, they're basically just talking garbage, right? May not need to provide that as they are not developed on the open source. Regarding the product released for the service providers, we are not obliged or allowed to provide the GPL code publicly unless it is approved by the provider. Please contact your internet provider first to confirm if they have it or they are able to provide it. So again, they're saying, well, they're saying a whole bunch of things. On one hand, they're saying, well, your internet provider didn't want the customer to modify the code, so therefore, even though it's not our code, we're just going to sort of breach copyright and request what the internet provider requested rather than what we're actually obliged to do with this code that doesn't belong to us. On the other hand, they're also sort of trying to imply that maybe even though they put this piece of paper inside, maybe it doesn't actually contain this software that's covered by this license agreement, even though it says here. This product includes software code developed by third parties, including software code subject to the GNU General Public License. Oh, whoops. And they're also sort of saying, well, we don't actually care about that. We just put this piece of paper inside the box, so you're going to leave us alone. So why do you keep asking us? And then they say they're not allowed to provide the code, which is also a bit weird. Sorry for any inconvenience and hope you could understand it again. Best regards. So I wanted to sort of probe a bit deeper in what they told me here. So I simply asked, thanks for your reply, much appreciated. Because, I mean, they hoped I could understand it and I could understand it. So I think that was a good effort on their part. You mentioned that some models don't contain open source code. In that case, could you please confirm whether this router model does or does not contain GPL software? Thanks. So simple enough question. They kind of tried to create a bit of doubt in my mind about whether they had to comply or not. And a few days later, because if you don't want to comply with something, it always pays to just drag things out a little bit. We have sent the request to the development team. I will let you know once they confirm it. Best regards. As it happens, I never got a reply after that. In fact, I ended up leaving the job I was working at, and my work email got terminated like before I ever got a reply, which was like several months. So that's the last I heard from them. Yeah. So what do you make of that? I mean, leave a comment below. Let me know what you make of that. You might be wondering again why I decided just not to name this manufacturer. As I mentioned before, I think it's important to sort of discuss the ideas rather than just turn it into a witch hunt, sort of targeting one company. And I think if you consider the software industry in general and what it's sort of become over the years, if you think this is just one company doing the wrong thing, you're probably not seeing the forest for the trees, honestly. Also, somehow I get the impression that maybe this company has more lawyers working for them than I do, and I might not know the whole story. Maybe they did find some kind of loophole where they can get it out of providing me with the source code. Also, even if I did have the source code, it wouldn't be very useful to me since my router is locked down in so many different ways. I would never be able to modify the code in order to update my router with my changes or my requirements anyway. Yeah, so what do you think of that? Fill up that comment section below. And also, if you have any ideas for any topics you think maybe you'd be interested if I covered in future videos, also let me know about those. Yeah, thanks for watching.